Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who has joined this webinar from various countries across this globe. Today, we're going to talk about migrating Microsoft Exchange to Office 365 and also about adoption. And thank you for your time today to attend this webinar. And we'll do a quick round of introduction. Michael, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, Sam, thank you. Hey guys, this is Michael. So thank you for joining this webinar. Firstly, so yeah, I have almost like 9+ years of experience in Exchange and Exchange migration in the IT industry, and here in Maarga, I'm working as a solutions architect. Yep. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Michael. And I'm Sam David, and I'm from Maarga Systems, and I'm working as a social business adoption and marketing ops lead. I have been with Maarga for almost 4 years now. My primary responsibility is to help enterprises adopt social software. I provide consultation for the adoption of enterprise social and mobile applications, and I'm also involved with the delivery of adoption framework for enterprises. Right, before we get started, here's a quick introduction about who we are and what we do. Maarga is a boutique technology consultancy firm, and we work with mid-size and large organizations to primarily help them with their collaboration, business process, and digital transformation journeys. And we do this mainly with 5 core focus areas, which is around automation of workflows using IBM Stack or Microsoft Stack. We also help organizations migrate from one technology stack to another. And we also help customers around their collaboration initiatives, enterprise collaboration platforms, and their entire digital journey around it. And apart from that, we also do management and maintenance of the infrastructure and applications of our customers to ensure that it's always up to the mark. Okay, that's a quick introduction about us and about our services that we offer. And now I'd like to hand it over to Michael for the rest of this webinar.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you for the good startup. So guys, we're going to talk about migration from Exchange on-premise to Office 365 today on this webinar. So the agenda would be like this. So we're going to talk about the migration transformation journey. So what is this migration transformation journey? It's nothing but the experience that we have performed and from Microsoft Exchange on-premise server to Office 365. It actually an live example that we have already performed, and we're going to show you what is our experience in terms of the migrations. So that's going to take care of that. And the second one would be the approach and the outcome. So what are the approaches and the outcome that we have taken in terms of migrating to cloud? Now the third one would be the identity modules, which is nothing but the authentication modules that we have used in our while we are migrating to cloud, the authentication modules that we have used. And fourth one would be the federations with the authentication with ADFS. That would be the ADFS authentication that we have used in our migrations. Once the migration completed, that is what we have used over there. And the fifth one, we're going to talk about the migration architecture, how exactly the migration would be. And the sixth one, it's the considerations during the migration and the pre-migrations. What are the considerations that you would be taking care of when you migrate your data to Office 365? And the seventh one, it would be the end-to-end view migration, what the project lines and what how in a face-to-face manner. We're gonna talk about that. And the last and that one would be the adoption. All right. So let's Scott, let's have a poll over here. So let's see what kind of migrations that current audience are in. So can you pull up a poll for that?
Okay, brilliant. The poll is on the screen now. So the question is, where are you in migrating your mail to the cloud? Is your status using Exchange but no plans to migrate to the cloud? Currently in the process of implementing Office 365, you've migrated the mail but need to improve the usage and adoption of Office 365, or none of the above? So we have a slightly mixed audience today. So we have over half of us have voted. Let's get a couple more votes in. Don't be shy. The mouse won't hurt you. And I'll share the results. We have almost 80% of us have voted. I'm going to share the results. So it looks like we're in just two camps today. We're currently in the process of implementing Office 365. That's 17% of the audience, and then 83% of the office is none of the above at the moment. Okay. So a different type of audience than I think we were expecting, but we still have plenty of information to share.
That's right. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So what we're going to discuss today is about the scope and the complexity that we have migrated. The scenarios that we're going to talk about is our live experience that we have performed. So this is what the scope and complexity that we have performed the migrations to Office 365. As you can see, there's 130 TB of data, which needs to migrate to Office 365, which is having almost like 30K mailboxes. And you can see the various type of mailboxes over here on the slide, which is user mailboxes, room mailboxes, public folders, share mailboxes. So this is what the complexity would be. So, and the business reasons is nothing but to reduce the cost of the servers, the services as well. And and we are agile in changing the operational environment as well. So just to make sure that the operational environment is completely not working through servers rather than working in cloud, just in one user graphical interface, you have everything over there. So one that would be one of the case. And you can also drive the user productivity over there, just by giving users a different way of feel in terms of applications, or different kind of applications for them to drive their productivity. And of course, we're going to streamline the IT operations as well. So, Scott, I would like to pull up one of the poll over here. Let's see what the audience is going to say. How long would the migration would have been taken?
Okay, so based on that information that you've seen, how long do you think it would take to do that type of a migration? Is it 6 to 9 months, 9 to 12 months, 12 to 18 months, or 18 to 24? We'll see, we have over half of the audience have voted. That's good. Everybody's awake and participating. We do appreciate this. Let's get a couple more votes in, and then I'll share the results, see what everybody's guessing. So the audience says 33% say 6 to 9 months, 33% say 9 to 12 months, 17% 12 to 18, and 17% 18 to 24. So we're kind of right there. Majority of us believe within 12 months.
All right. Thank you, Scott. So as expected, that's I think audience have guessed it correctly, the majority of them. Let me tell you guys that we have actually made it in 8 months of time frame. So we have migrated almost like 130 TB of data to Office 365 in just 8 months of time frame. Not only the mailboxes, this includes public folders as well as conference rooms and shared mailboxes as well. So this is what we have taken care, and so this includes some benefits as well. So we have actually improved our single sign-on experience across the on-premise and Office 365 as well. Just that we have given to the users, wherein they need not to type in the user accounts multiple times, rather they can just use it a single time to access their cloud system as well. And we have actually given it actually has a good benefits in terms of like production and controlling access of the devices, and data with the right management services as well. So and also we have a great office. It's actually the same office, but which is available in online currently in Office 365. And we also this also has benefits of integrated mobile access, which actually eliminates device management challenges. So for example, if any mobile devices is missing, so it actually initially we did had just a remote wipe, but if it's once it is integrated in Office 365 in the integrated mobile access, so we have a good opportunity to erase only the particular data or just remove the account from the mobile device, so that the okay, and wipe out all the informations as well. So this is one, and we can also add an good benefits, nothing but scanning of data documents without even downloading it. Just for example, it just as soon as you receive an email, it actually scans the email itself. For example, in Office 365, the latest is ATP, Advanced Threat Protection, which actually scans the documents in the email itself and provides you the fresh and clean document for you to view and start using the documents as well. And and not to worry about any updates in the online, because it would be readily updated in the online, and all the updates would be updated automatically in the online environment. And what are the capabilities that's the benefits. And let's coming to the capabilities. It actually store, sync, and share. It's very easy to store the data where in all the different applications, and is synchronizing applications from your laptop or mobile devices to your account, and sharing the files and storages, files and documents to other resources. It actually become very easy, and you can actually use it from anywhere. You can even access your mobile device using an application. You can download all sort of applications in your mobile device, which applications are available in the application store. You can just download, connect your account, and start using it. So that's one of the capabilities that we had in Office 365. So what we have as a consolidation. So consolidation is nothing but we have one enterprise grade solutions that scales with the business. So basically, if any user, all the application is available at one single click. So as soon as you click in your tiles icon in your Outlook account, you'll be having all the applications. Just that you need to select what application that you need to use, and you start off using that application. And obviously, it actually improves users' work style by delivering the same security interface and usability features between on-premise and cloud and mobile systems. So yeah, this is again a new features that we have in Office 365. It's available for the end users, for them to start working on their day-to-day and day-out work, just giving them a good graphical interface of applications for them to start using it, and and improve their productivity as well. Okay, so next, the next slide is going to talk about our approach and outcomes. So what is the approach, and what is the approach that we have performed in terms of migrating this to Office 365? So the best practices that we have followed is like, we have actually cleaned up our data, or perform identity management. So before even we moving all the data to Office 365, it's always recommended, or it's a best practice that we clean out all the unwanted data in on-premise environment, so that we can move only the wanted data and important data to Office 365, so that it'll be, we are like clearing all our trash. And we're also setting up the identity management solutions, which is nothing but implementation of identity management. That's also best practice to look into before even we migrate that. And also the main point would be the bandwidth. So the bandwidth capabilities that we need to test it. So we need to perform some conduct to measure throughputs and identity bandwidth bottlenecks. So which nothing but you need to test your network throughput first, just to perform some migrations, and and you need to calculate your throughput, how exactly it is, how much data that you can transfer using in your existing bandwidth to Office 365. If you have a slow bandwidth and your data is not moving faster than you expected, that's one bottleneck. Because, for example, if you have a huge number of mailboxes and if you want to migrate a large data, you'll not be able to do that. All right. So next, user adoption is something which Sam will be covering it. And the next one is the migration strategy that I'm going to talking about. What is the strategy that we have used? We need a strategy that moves only workloads that align the Office 365 capabilities. And we have checklist based approaches starting with multiple POCs, just starting up the migration. So with what kind of a migrations, the hybrid migration, just moving off 10 to 20 users and 30 users and moving out initially to test out the functionality. And we did also conducted readiness reviews with all the stakeholders, such as the network team. You need to involve network team, network infrastructure team, directory services team, and client protocols, end-to-end interaction, upgrade Office versions. So you need to set up an interactions with them so that they will also be able to ready and cope up with us once we have migrated to Office 365. And last, we also reviewed this migration strategy with preparedness with the Gartner as well, which helped us to with an outsider's view of our email environment and to work through issues that may have been harder to identify. So the Gartners has given us insight of what outsider's view as well. So we have planned our migration strategy as well. So efficiency is nothing but access, licenses. What are the licenses which we need to have in Office 365, which we need to assign, and email security to counter malware and virus attack as well. And we also wanted to identify the data of legal hold and ensure metadata was not altered during the migration process. So in the legal process, you need to keep in mind as well, while you're moving your legal data from your on-premise to Office 365, you need to keep in mind that the metadata, it shouldn't be not altered while in your migration as well. So we also have a special handling of settings of on-site exchange, such as retention policies, mobile device settings, mailbox, over Outlook web access policies, and spam and malware filtering software rules. So it's nothing but it automatically gets recreated. It doesn't require to recreate in Office 365, rather we just migrate it to cloud. So that is what the efficiency which we have. So, and coming to the next slide. So this would be the communication. This is also something which needs to be done. I think everything will be completed in the adoption itself. However, I'll just briefly explain that to you guys as well. So email broadcasting. So generally, for the end users, normally that we'll be migrating to cloud and everything. So email broadcasting as well, and informing the key stakeholders to internet, and using a social cast is something a very internal site, or you can use Yammer to share the information, and face-to-face interactions and demos and town hall meetings, and you can actually set up some intra-site project management tracking plans and processing and knowledge base, and sharing with to the end users. So, and what are the challenges that we have faced? It's nothing but we didn't have a EOP. It's not a part of the it's not a par with the proof point filtering. So that's one of the challenge. And we also had the compatibility of application plugins with the legacy versions of Microsoft Office and sales and legal and customer supports. We did had some challenges on that as well. And we did had challenges in our network. So that is what the key point over here for us to migrate this all the mailboxes to cloud. We had a very challenge in terms of network. So what we decided to have a dedicated network route to migrate migration to Office 365. This is the key step that we have taken, and that's what our success is. So apart from actually we are managing the on-premise apart from management to on-premise AD, we actually had to provision user identities, to cloud-based resources as well. And we also, so that's what our challenges. So on the follow-up issues, what we had is it had just minor issues in terms of, calendars. We did have some calendar issues as well, wherein the users will not be able to see calendar issues, and few of them or apps are not installed correctly, so we had to remove and re-add it. And we had also some permissions issue which we had to recreate the permissions, re-add the permissions as well. And we also ensure that all the email addresses are actually synchronized to the user's account as expectedly. So this was a little bit follow-up issues which we had, which we also needs to do once after we migrated to cloud. Okay, so the next one is the architecture level. So previously, before even we migrate the Office 365, this is what the previous state and hybrid interim state and the end state. So previous state, we did had an Exchange 2013, and we did had an internal postfix servers, which is used to relay internal emails within applications, and then Exchange 2013 server, and we did had a proof point server for mail filtering, and external postfix server again for mail, routing emails, external internal emails, and relay emails for an external applications, and then to the internet. This is what the previous state. After migrating to the cloud, we did have same thing, Exchange 2013 server, and we did had internal Exchange internal postfix server, and then to the internet, and we have actually migrated our internal proof point to SaaS-based cloud-based proof point solution in the Office in the cloud, and then to Office 365. That's how the hybrid interim state is. And end state is nothing but directly having an Office 365 internet, which includes EOP in this in the end state. Okay, so that's what it is. And let's go to the Office 365 identity module. So these are the models that we have, 3 different type of models. One is like cloud identity, which doesn't even it's a single identity in the cloud, no integration required to the on-premise AD. It's just direct direct Office 365 integration. And the next one is directory and password synchronization, which actually requires an synchronization tool to synchronize your AD to Office 365. It actually uses a single identity mastered, wherein you can even sync your passwords to Office 365, wherein users can just use the same username and a password. And the next one is federated identity, which actually uses Active Directory federation, or depends upon your any third-party application like VIDM, virtual identity management, which actually federates federates identity, which is nothing but credentials and authentications, which from on-premise to Office 365. So what we have chosen is to implement the authentication with ADFS, wherein a single federated identity and credentials, which we have used it. So this is nothing but it's actually a claims-based access control authentication model. It's actually maintained application security and implement federated identity. So it's actually a claims-based authentication is nothing but it's a process of actually authenticating a user based on a set of claims about an identity contained in a trusted token. Okay, so wherein the user, when they tries to access it, the request goes to the token goes to the ADFS server. ADFS server will talk to the ADFS site server and talks to the Active Directory and sees if the credentials are good. If the ADFS server finds out that this particular credentials are good, it sends out a token request to Office 365 AD and confirms that is this the user and a password. And if that authentication is good, then yeah, the authentication succeeds, and then user will be able to access the mails or the authentication it will be passing through. So that's what the ADFS implementation that we have done. So, and coming to the migration architecture, what we need to consider before the migration. So you should, is your organization ready to perform a migration? And you need to understand your environment status as well, infrastructure status, whether your network bandwidth is good, your infrastructure is up to date, and you also need to update your IT teams whether they are ready for their Office 365 migration, or do they need any sort of knowledge transfer, or you need to actually make sure your users are ready for the big change. And you also need to provide an end users training so that they will be ready in terms of once migrated to Office 365 cloud. All right. And what is the pre-migration steps that you need to you need to consider? So what type of migration that you're going to perform and the tools that you're going to use? That's first one. And second one, onboarding your organization to Office 365. What is a path that you're going to take into, and what are the licenses that you're going to assign? What is the license pack that you're going to take in Office 365? Because Office 365 has multiple licenses packages, and you need to define what sort of licenses is required for your organization, and you need to set end user expectations that once it is migrated, what would be there in Office 365, what are the features that will be available, and how they can use it. And and also you need to to work on the administrator accesses to Office 365 services, to make sure that you need to give a specific administrative credentials, administrative privileges to a selected number of people. It's always recommended to give permissions, global admin permissions to a specific people, not to all of them. All right, and also not but not the least, what services need to be. What is the services that in Office 365 that your organization does need and doesn't need? So you need to identify that so that you will be able to perform. Once after migration, you can easily go ahead and perform the tasks. Okay. So this is the end-to-end view of the project, which I'm talking about. So
Sam?
is a migration life cycle,
Right.
which I was talking to. All right. So the first one is assessment and migration strategy and the migration plan and the pilot and then testing and then migrate. So what is the assessment? The assessment plan is nothing but you're gonna assessment about your source systems. What is whether your source system is ready, and your network assessment, whether you have a good network bandwidth or not, that is there. And you have another, which is the endpoint assessment. You need to check out your endpoint assessment, whether your documents, your Office packs are ready, whether you can push in Office updates to all the users, and risk assessments, which is nothing but end user network requirements, security complaints and legal requirements, compatibility, and end user readiness. And infra assessment, make sure that your servers are up to date, and so that you will, and with all the updated patches and everything. Now, second, coming to migration strategy, you need to migration option, what kind of a migration option that you're going to choose, and what is the approach that you're going to take, and what is deliverables that you're going to perform. That would be on the migration strategy. And migration plan will be like same thing, which is the project plan, and what will the milestones and schedules and finally and customizing plans. And what would be the migration planning dating, and what if you get a bottlenecks, and what is the time frame that you're going to perform. All this would be you'll be doing it in migration planning. So pilot is something much which we'll be performing in like 100 or 10 to 20 or 30 or 100 users. We'll start off with the migration to Office 365 and just test whether we have any network bandwidth or any throttling issues from Microsoft. Or any sort of other issues are coming up in our in-house on-premise servers. So that can be figured on the pilot testing. And integration, for UAT testing, it's nothing but after migration, you just test all the functionalities in terms of mail, mobile devices, everything. You're going to test it out over there. And once it's migrated, you're going to migrate mailboxes and SharePoint, OneDrive data and everything. So we're going to perform that to Office 365. We're going to set up on what is the migration goal, success and criteria plan. We're going to set that as well. And what are the tools? Tools management, review, and control migration activities will also be involved in this. So, and once all this migration has been completed in the migration phase, we will be doing a knowledge management in terms of like for end users, IT team. We will be performing knowledge transfer to the project management, as well as the IT operations level 2 task guys. Knowledge transfer will be given, and quality and risk management is again the key role in the Office 365 migration. So as I expected, as I informed, risk management is something which is nothing but end users network requirements that we need to make sure that once after migration, the network requirements are good. And once after migration, you need to check the security complaints and legal requirements are given and satisfied, and they are satisfied, and compatibility issues in terms of machines and Outlook versions available in online. You need to make sure you use that.
And end user readiness, and we need to make sure that end users are ready and all the information has been given to them and they are ready to perform the action. Okay, so and last thing is project governance and communication management. So project governance involves like a strategic program, project manager, and then CO team, operations team, and the escalation matrix. You need to define that in the project governance. And communication management is nothing but we did had an on-site and offshore users, key stakeholders to communicate communications between them, whether the migration is going on time or not. We're going to check what pre-migration step 1, implementation of pre-migration 1, kind of communication, and pre-migration 2 communication, and pre-migration 3 communications. 1 isn't done. Then after this 3 is done, we're going to set up and we did set up an go live migration day management. Once it is done, we're going to set up on the go live. We'll be having one more communication, and once it is done, post communication, post migration, we did have a communication in terms of whether everything has been successfully migrated to cloud or not. So that is what it is. So this is what my information about this. So with that said, I'm going to conclude I'm going to conclude right now. So I'm going to hand it over to Sam, who's going to talk about the adoption. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, Michael. Now that we have talked about migration journey, approach, outcomes, architecture, and so on in so much detail, let's now shift our focus to adoption. And before we get into the details, I'd like to do a poll. Scott, can you please bring up the polls for us? Poll number 3.
Okay, so poll number 3. In Office 365, what is the biggest challenge you face in end user adoption? Is it confusion on where to share documents, either OneDrive or SharePoint? Organizing collaboration, teams versus groups versus SharePoint? Third option, not leveraging SharePoint's potential fully. Or the last point, business users struggling with Office 365 mail calendar features. So let's get the poll of the audience, what they think the biggest challenge will be. We have almost over half of us have voted. This is great. We do appreciate this feedback. And again, we will share the live results. Okay, getting about 80, almost 80, over 80% of us have voted. 2 more seconds and we'll share the results. So 25% believe that the confusion of where to share documents is the biggest challenge. 50% believe it's the organization of collaboration, and 25% believe it's not leveraging SharePoint's potential.
Excellent. Thanks, Scott. In fact, these results reflect the general trend that we see in the market, especially with Office 365. I would say I'm not surprised by the results. The key challenge that end users face with Office 365 is choosing between different apps, either for sharing documents or for collaboration. And we've been seeing this trend in most of the cases that we have dealt with. Right, now let's move on and understand why we need to talk about adoption, and especially when we move from a platform, from any platform and start using Office 365, why should we be concerned about adoption? Adoption holds the key, especially when your organization needs to take a decision on the license renewals, as you have to justify the ROI that you get from the investment that your organization had not just made for the migration process, but also for the Office licenses. And this is the hype cycle for adoption, which is typical in nature for any enterprise collaboration software in any organization. And this is a trend that the users typically follow. There is an initial hype where you don't need to do so much in terms of adoption, but users do come and start using the platform, and there's a healthy mix of conversations happening. But if we let that continue without putting enough investments in nurturing the platform, then at a certain point, you would start seeing a regression. And once the regression starts to happen, there are very few options for you to bring it back on track for a sustained adoption. So what we generally recommend is that you need to re-engineer processes, and you need to rethink how your organization's business processes need to be brought onto a platform like Office 365 even before this point, so that you don't hit the regression at all. And when the adoption initiatives are taken at the right time, it would boost the usage of the platform, which can positively influence the user behavior, and it will increase the productivity as well. And here is a list of techniques that can be used to improve adoption. This is extracted from a 5-phase adoption framework that is primarily used for end-to-end adoption of any collaborative platform in an organization. We have selected only a few of these techniques from a larger framework for this webinar, as it is relevant to migration. Essentially, all these techniques listed here don't provide guidance to users on just using Office 365 or any other tool for that matter. However, we talk about use cases and how the end users would utilize various features or aspects of Office 365 for a particular use case. And this use case could be a simple case of file sharing, or it could be a complex process which involves the sales teams and the marketing teams. And by these techniques listed out here, you would be able to align the business users with the processes of your organizations, with your organizational goals. And let's talk about these techniques very quickly. End user trainings can be conducted in a classroom or virtually using a Skype meeting with audio and screen share features. And as I said before, this is not a training session where we would talk about the tool, but we introduce the use cases that we have identified for the organization, and we help the users adopt them. And awareness drives primarily can be used to beam teaser videos or to display posters and infographics across the organization with the help of the internal branding and communications team. Collaboration booth can be physical booths like the ones that you see in exhibitions and trade fairs. And we showcase some informative videos and posters there. And a couple of experts would be manning the booth, and they would be addressing the end user questions and doubts. And the collaboration booth can also be a virtual booth, primarily with the help of teleconferencing line or with Skype meetings. Lunch and learn sessions are fun sessions where some food is available and some competitions are conducted. It could be a simple competition to see who can upload a file and share it with a SharePoint site quickly, or it could be a game of treasure hunt where people find clues in different places within Office 365. And we can also build some interactive training material and help guides that would the users would be able to read or watch and learn about the use cases that you have identified for the organization. And now let's talk about our experiences with one of our key customers. They're a utilities company based out of Europe. They had just migrated their files to Office 365 from a legacy document management system that they had been using for more than 7 years. And the workflows was so much accustomed to using the legacy systems, and they were not able to get familiarized with the new age collaborative features such as co-authoring and collaborating within a document and so on. And it was our turn to understand their business issue and provide them an appropriate solution. And we started to work with the primary stakeholders, and we understood their pain points, and we created a strategy roadmap for them. And then we decided to conduct awareness workshops, which was actually a virtual event where we quickly demonstrated the collaborative features of Office 365, and a few of the top executives shared their testimonials as well, and some of the key use cases from everyday work scenario were presented in that awareness workshop. But the most important activity that we conducted for them was a virtual collaboration booth. We had set up a Skype for business meeting, and we had announced the users that we would be open for an hour at a specific time. And in total, there were around 40 people who logged in and they asked questions. In fact, a few people logged in to see what others were asking and how our experts were addressing their queries. And the results started to show within a month of the start of the adoption program. There was a steady increase in terms of collaborative activities. And the biggest metric that came from this initiative was that the number of files uploaded and shared on Office 365 doubled within a time span of 6 months. But there was a significant drop in the numbers of tickets that the IT help desk got as well. So that was an example of a highly successful adoption initiative that we did for one of our customers. And that brings us to the end of the adoption section of this webinar. And let us now, we'd appreciate if you can provide us the feedback about this webinar. It would be helpful for us to improve our upcoming webinars. Scott, can you post the link on the chat section, please?
Yes, so if you'll open up your GoToWebinar control panel and go to the chat section, I've just posted a link in there for you to complete this in-webinar feedback form. It's a very quick form. It's a quick link there. And if you would kindly fill out that information, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah.
And you might want to open that up in a second window if you're still opening that. You can continue to fill that out as we go into the next section.
Okay, we'll give you a few more seconds to fill this form. Okay, before we conclude, we actually wanted to let you know how you can work with us or how you can make use of our services. Basically, there are 3 ways you can engage Maarga. The first one is for adoption. We can provide you a customized training or an overview of SharePoint online that is specific to your organization. We can also take up a use case and implement this in your organization, and we can provide your users some guidance on how to go about these use cases. And the second one is about migration. You can reach out to us if you want to migrate your mailboxes or content or even apps to Office 365, and we will play the role of your technology partner in providing end-to-end migration solution. And you can also make use of our services to implement automated business process workflows using SharePoint that would bring in automation into your systems. And you can reach out to us at sales@maargasystems.com, or you can pick up your phone and call us. Okay, and that concludes the presentation for today. And it's now time for questions. Scott, do we have any questions yet in the chat?
Okay, so we do have a couple of questions in the queue already. So the first one is, from our research and investigation, there could be impact on network bandwidth for a project. So how would that impact the scheduling and the results?
So I'll take that question, Scott. So yes, in terms of networking, let me tell you the key role over here. So if you have, say, if you have a very huge mailboxes and you have a huge data to be migrated to Office 365. So if your network bandwidth is not as faster, is not as enabled as expected, say by default Microsoft has like 10 to 15 gigs per data migrated to Office 365. So per hour, that's per hour. So if you have if you go in that rate of speed, you will not end up like migrating, say for example in a batch, if you're migrating like 500 to 600 or 700 user mailboxes, considering the fact that each mailbox has almost like 10 or 10 5 or 10 gigs of data. So consider Microsoft can allow like 10 to 15 gigs per hour. So if in that case your network bandwidth or the data migration would be very slower. So if you have a dedicated line, which actually, it gives a throughput of like say per hour, it would be like 60 to 70 TB, in a network bandwidth, which because in your existing network, it's not only the migration bandwidth, you might have another bandwidth as well in terms of like Outlook. People would be accessing Outlook, users are accessing using mobile devices, all the traffic goes in one single bandwidth, network bandwidth. So that's the reason why it affects your migration batches and your timelines.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next question. Do you recommend any specific tools for migration?
Yes, I'll take that question as well. So by default, for migration from Exchange on-premise to Office 365, we would normally we would recommend to use the Microsoft Windows PowerShell to migrate it to Office 365. Nevertheless, if you wanted to use any tool to migrate it from Exchange on-premise to Office 365, currently in the market, we do have a binary tree tool that we could use to migrate it from your Exchange on-premise to Office 365. Also, you can use BitTitan, which is a migration list tool as well. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Last question that is in the queue. So if anyone else has a question, now's the time to start typing it in so we can get the last few questions into the queue. Last question is, sometimes during big migration projects or other big projects, actually there, seems to be some key stakeholders that are left out. Who are the key stakeholders you would recommend to be engaged in a migration project?
So I'll take this question indeed. So with the key stakeholders that you need to make sure that you have it involved is first the Microsoft guys from the key stakeholders, and you need to have your security, which is SecOps guys, security and operations and complaints management guys, and you need to have your legal guys and your business heads. These are the and your project manager, of course. So project management team. So these are the critical key stakeholders that you need to be involved to make sure. The reason why Microsoft is because when you're performing the migrations, there would be a bottlenecks and there would be like issues coming up in between. So you need to have resources available 24/7 to assist you specifically for this migration for you. So if you have a stakeholder in Microsoft, that's the reason, that's one of the key stakeholder. Microsoft is one of the key stakeholder. Second one is your security and complaints security team in terms of like to ask Microsoft guys how secure is your data going to be in Office 365, and while migrating your data, how securely that mailbox is good. I mean, the data is going to be migrated. So, and security team has their own, questionnaires that they would be, asking to the Microsoft stakeholders as well. Third one, legal department. So for legal department, they're considered about the legal data. So what happens if during the phase of migration, what happens if any, will there be any data loss? That legal team should also be informed that there would be no data loss, because whatever data would be just migrates to Office 365 and will be kept in a secure space, secure cloud location. And finally, project management team to make sure they are available of the project timelines, and whether it's going to be extended or it's going to be completed in a time frame which the ETA which has been given. If it's going to extend it, you need to inform them, your project management and your business heads, to make sure to take up a business if a business business approvers, if at all, if this particular migration has any huge bottleneck. For example, if the Microsoft Office 365 has any issues over there, or say your in-house servers has been not yet upgraded and had some issues, so business heads needs to be updated so that they can take a decision making whether to hold this project for a couple of days and fix that and then migrate it or not. So business, that's where in business come into picture. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. The next question is, how will the speed be impacted if the end users are using a thin client like Citrix and wanting to move the data to the cloud, to Office 365?
All right. So to answer the question, so not all users are using a Citric Lens, as far as my knowledge. Most of them, they might be using their mobile devices as well to synchronize your Outlook accounts, synchronize mobile devices, or use OneDrive for Business from Outlook on a mobile device, or and other functionalities in terms of not only users, but in one particular network bandwidth you have other it's actually a shared network bandwidth. Normally in each and every company they will be having a shared network bandwidth. Usually they will not be having a dedicated lines, dedicated networks for individual access, individual application access. We have a different line. No, everybody is using a shared network bandwidth, and that's wherein I was talking about. And even if the users are using a thin client, correct, that's not going to be affected. But if they're using mobile device and other applications which are using the same bandwidth, that's wherein the speed will get reduced.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, I think we're at the end of our questions. I don't have any new ones coming in. So, Michael and Sam, thank you so much for your presentation and the work and preparation into preparing this. And thank you to everyone who has attended the webinar. We appreciate your time. Again, this has been recorded, so we'll get this sent out to you, the link sent out to you in an email so that you can refer back to it. So Sam, Michael, I'll give you the last word, and then we'll go ahead and terminate the webinar today.
Yes, Scott. I just have one more stuff which I didn't mention in this webinar. Is nothing but I have just read and I heard that Microsoft has removed the threshold value in terms of migration from Exchange to Office 365. So that's a good step that they have removed the threshold value. They can even remove it by once you get in touch with your Microsoft stakeholders, they will remove the threshold value of your PowerShell so that you can migrate constantly all your mailboxes to cloud. The threshold value has been, they can remove it.
Oh,
So until
brilliant. That's a good point to know.
Yeah. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you again, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.